Oh, Bertsky, 7. Number 7. 7's a lucky number. You know what they say, eh? 7 dwarfs. 7-Eleven. 7 little chipmunks.
7.
Twirling on my branch. Eating a lot of sunflowers on my uncle's ranch. You know that childhood tune from the sea.
You know the nursery rhyme. Why don't you introduce our guest while we have him here?
We got Dr. Josh Secomb, PhD. How are you, Josh?
I'm good, mate. I'm a mixture of nervous and excited.
What are you doing? You're in the gym right now? Are you working out or something? What's going on?
No, it's just one of those fake Zoom backgrounds.
Oh, yeah, we don't get people like that. We get people that are legit, right, Ray Sheffield? Anyways.
Yeah, and I put this here instead of the plane, so I wasn't looking for planes like Razor.
Oh, yeah. Josh, what's happening? How are you, buddy?
I'm good, mate. Good. It's nice to – I was going to say it's nice to see you, but I've been seeing you a bit, so it's nice to see Bert.
Yeah, I haven't seen you in, man, I don't even know when. We were still on the ice, I think.
February.
We're just getting on the ice.
Playing
Yeah.
hockey. I mean. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because I was going to see you for the preseason testing, and we just couldn't connect the dots.
And then the pandemic got in the way.
You were there.
Yeah, I really saw that coming, so dodged the bullet there.
Well, you're in career best form, I think. So.
I mean, worked pretty hard in the off season, but I don't know coming into this year how I was really feeling.
Yeah.
I think through all this, we talked about it a little bit. I was just kind of overwhelmed with everything going on. So it's not that bad to kind of take a step away and take a deep breath, recharge the batteries a bit.
Well, you were pretty well working out and pretty good for Worlds. So you were.
Yeah, I mean every year, right? So it is what it is. Now I'm keen to get back on the ice here. Joe, tell us what you've been doing a bit.
Nothing. I built a cubby house for my kids. I got a war wound, cut my thumb from, that's it. And I've been working on a coal loader.
Is that the same thumb that you cut with the table saw?
Grinder? No.
Grinder?
No, funny you say that, though. My dad just cut his thumb with a table saw. Same thumb. It's hereditary.
Good for business.
That is the same. Keep the doctors going. Speaking of doctors, Josh Secomb, PhD. Josh, you started out with surf on. Instead of me going through the whole spiel, I'll jump in and start crushing some theories and some thoughts on what you do. Tell us who you are. Tell the people. Tell the trillions and trillions of people. Who is Josh Secomb? Dr. Josh Secomb.
Well, firstly, I'm not a real doctor. We'll clear that up.
So if anybody has any medical issues, not to call you.
Yeah, no, not at all. No, if you just want to lift a couple of weights, then maybe. But anything else, go see someone legit. Who am I? How far back we going?
Hey, let's start it off. What'd you do? How'd you start? What's the path? Okay. I'll pave it. I'll paint the scenery. Josh, you followed a dream. You followed a passion. Your passion is surfing. Your passion is sport. Your passion is, well, not working out yourself, but you love the fitness aspect of it, and go from there.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably, I guess, as good a place as any, mate. Growing up, just always just involved in sport, probably played most sports out there, just couldn't get enough of it. Was sort of, in hindsight, was probably like a physical and mental release. Just always just loved it. Always had a tendency to enjoy contact sports, but then obviously being like the height of like a 12-year-old boy, it doesn't kind of line up, but still enjoyed the contact. So then for me, it was on where I guess just from like an early age, I was like, loved the contact sports, was aware that I was never going to be even probably below average height. let alone average height, and just sort of got stuck into the gym, just enjoyed the physical training side as much. For me, it was sort of just a way just to feel like I could actually not absolutely get myself killed in contact sports. So just enjoyed that side, and just kind of went down that path. Then through school, always wanted to do sort of like physio or sports science or something, but there wasn't really much of a pathway in Newcastle. Like Newcastle didn't have a sports science degree at the time. They had physio, but the entry marks were just like mental. So I was actually initially enrolled in uni in civil engineering, and then just did that for like a week, had like a bit of a part-time job, hated it. Then was like, no, I want to do something sporty. Went to PE teaching, hated that. Then luckily the next year, the sports science program was opening up at the Central Coast campus. So then just sort of put all my eggs in that basket, got stuck into that and just loved it from there. It just sort of progressed. And it's kind of one of those programs or degrees where you kind of have to, I guess, to have a sort of crack at doing or having a job in the field, you kind of got to go like through like the honours or masters, PhD route. So just sort of recognized I wanted to do that, and then just sort of started kind of going down that path, which was good. It kind of got me a bit more focused, a little bit more on the academics than the party scene. So that was sort of how I got stuck into that. And then when I was coming to the end of it, for us here, it's a bit obviously different to the States and how other programs work, whereas you kind of got to go honours and then into a PhD rather than a master's. So I did the honours, had a couple of topics, could kind of go surfing or rugby league, and then I just ended up doing surfing. It was sort of like a hobby sport for me, nothing I was ever good at, but just a hobby sport. And then from that, that same year that I did the honours, which was based down here in Newcastle, the high performance centre up at Casuarina, so just south of the Queensland border, still in New South Wales, that had just got started with a full national program funded by AIS. And I met the guy that was sort of head of performance there, and went up there, did the PhD, which was kind of the integrated one. So like did a PhD through a uni over in Perth, and then just worked full time at Surfing Australia, and that's sort of how it got started.
2013, you were awarded a faculty medal. It was given to the highest achieving honors student. Like that's a pretty good little piece of material there you got.
Well, I didn't actually know that's until you just brought that up. Yeah, I've done your research. Shit, I didn't even remember that. Yeah, I think maybe I was the only one that did it that year, but I know I got some okay marks, and
that's a high. You get it's the highest, the highest honors student, highest mark for the honors people. You got it, and that's an okay mark. This guy's humble as a peach, Bertsky. Humble as a peach he is.
I didn't actually know that. That's what I did.
So working with Surfing Australia, what type of stuff? Would you be in the water? Would you be in the gym?
Yeah.
What was like your daily routine there?
Yeah, it was really cool actually, because it was almost like the first kind of time that surfing had kind of had like a high performance sort of approach taken to it. So my boss was a Canadian guy. He'd come over. He'd worked at Canadian Sports Institute and with multiple Olympians back there. And then he came over working at AIS for like 10, 12 years. Just like really, really sort of recognized as like probably, I don't know, one of the top S&C coaches sort of worldwide. And he'd kind of come in and real kind of like hard-ass dude, and was almost sort of just brought in with the task of like, look, this is a sport that doesn't have a high-performance culture, so can you instill that? So pretty much take all his knowledge from Olympic sports and try to get it sort of transfer it to surfing. So it was pretty much just doing everything. Like these days across sport, you've got sort of people in like strength and conditioning, so like the actual sort of physical training side, people in sports science, people in biomechanics, physiology, all those areas. But just due to the nature of it at the time, we're kind of just doing a bit of everything, which at first it was a bit overwhelming, but in hindsight, like looking back at it now, it was really cool to have that experience, just to get exposure and experience to a broad range of things, but also just being part of something that essentially you're just introducing high performance culture to a sport for the first time. And I guess you just sort of learn or try to learn sort of what works and what doesn't work, not so much from like a practical sense, but more just from actually like delivering it to the athletes. And I guess it sort of makes you sort of really buy into like the human element of it. Because I think our industry in particular, like the sports science industry, tends to almost just treat people like numbers. It's just like you see a bit of number on a paper and you try to make a decision off that. Whereas the beauty of sort of going into Surfing Australia and having that from the ground up was we had athletes that were like, we'd give them numbers and they'd be like, I don't give a shit about that. Like, I don't know what that means. Like, I'm still going to go surf. And so it was good from that sense, just like, okay, there's always got to be that sort of human element. You got to build that relationship first rather than just trying to go straight to the fancy crap.
You went from Surf Australia, you went to worked with in the AFL, you worked with Brisbane Lions. You know, and then working with in the NRL, how you had players come to you guys off season, working with them and whatnot. Transition, you loved the game of hockey. You had the opportunity, and you're basically you were the front runner for the head S&C guy for Las Vegas Golden Knights. You know, he didn't turn out too well because obviously with the young family, moving him to Vegas from here, it was a big decision for you to turn down. You have a lot of connections in the NHL, National Predators, and stuff like that. How being just a hockey fanatic and a lover of it, and obviously playing the sport, how stoked were you when that opportunity came up with the Golden Knights?
Yeah, mate, to be honest, it was kind of a funny one. Like, it was sort of it came around kind of at a good or bad time, depending what way you look at it. Like, just due to like, I guess more like personal crap kind of going on. Like, I'd left Surfing Australia, felt like I needed to move on, and then I don't know, like kind of it was one of those moments like grass is always greener. Like, I sort of thought I was just like, I need to get out of here, and then I got out there and I was like, oh, it was actually pretty good. And then I was doing the commute from Casuarina to Brisbane, it was probably just like if you were commuting from say, like if we're going from Newcastle like to Sydney every day, or like there was days where it would take me 2 hours each way. And at that time, Ari was she was about two and a half. Dee was pregnant with Rory, and so I was doing that like every day, just the hour and a half to 2 hours each way. We had Rory, and I was just that was when I was at Queensland Academy of Sport, which was part of the Olympic system. And again, that was one where I was like just sort of stoked to be in that environment. But it was one where it was just causing sort of more stress. I was like, man, I'm in the car for 4 hours every day, sort of minimum. Got 3 kids, like 2 young daughters at home. And that was probably the first time where I was just like, oh, look, like, I mean, I guess working in sport, like I know this is sort of going off tangent a bit, but like working in sport, it's like, I know you can sometimes sort of get caught up with the flashy lights, the logos, all that. And it was one like I still enjoyed the job, but I was like, man, it's not worth it, like to be missing 4 hours a day with the kids. So then I ended up kind of leaving that job, went back to surfing. I was sort of part-time. Also did some stuff for New South Wales Police Force, which it was sort of sold to me like it was going to be, like it was just going to be like high performance sport. But then it was pretty much just like doing this rehab, personal training, counselling type thing. And I was sort of in that time period where I was just like, oh man, like I had this kind of good start to the career, and then I felt like it was just going downhill, and I was working these part-time jobs, and I was like, man, like what am I kind of doing here? Like, should I restudy, blah, blah, blah. And then we're coming back to visit Newcastle. I can't remember what for, but we're coming back and we're doing the drive down the coast and got to like Coffs Harbour. Dee was driving. I was just scrolling through just the job postings worldwide. And I was like, oh, Vegas one. And I was like, oh, that'd be like so sick. And we got to my mum's that night. And I was like, oh, just for shits and giggles, I'll just chuck a resume in. Like, I was just like, man, that'd be a dream job. Like, fuck, like, just got to throw the hat in the ring. Like, even though it was one in my head, I was just like, man, they'll just kind of laugh at me. Yeah. And then I remember waking up the next day and had like an email from the head of performance, or can't remember what his name was, and he's like, oh, can you jump on Skype in the next couple of days? And at first I was like, oh, D stitched me up here. Like, I went to D and I'm like, oh, like, that was pretty funny, blah, blah. And she was like, wait, what? And so it sort of rolled from there. And when was that? 2018. And just had like multiple kind of Skype interviews. Like, I think went through like 7 or something. And sort of, as you alluded to, it kind of came to it, and he's like, oh, look, we want you for it, but this is the pay. And it was just one where I was like, I just can't do that.
It's a big risk. Big risk for the family.
Yeah, like, it was sort of one, like, I mean, I was doing the numbers and everything, and I think I even sort of hit you up about it, and everyone was sort of like, oh, look, it'd probably be doable, but it was just that one. I'm like, I'm not going to take wife and 3 kids overseas. And
yeah,
the amount of times where people kind of get 1 or 2 years out and then get fired or whatever, I was like, I don't want to be stuck in a situation where it just sort of doesn't line up. And it was pretty hard, actually. Like, and just for total honesty, like, I sort of said no to it, and then being kind of talking to people about other jobs, and it just none of it worked out. And I actually kind of went in a pretty bad place mentally, to be honest. Just had like a bit of a meltdown, and probably just more like a
reality check, like an adult
reality check. Yeah, and it just like I guess like a career existential crisis almost. Like, so it was sort of hard from that, but like, I knew it was kind of the right thing, and just kind of hoped that things would work out. And to be honest, like, I'm pretty stoked with everything now. So in hindsight, I'm over the moon.
Well, you're working with the University of Newcastle, and you're working with the Newcastle Knights in the NRL, and obviously working with the North Stars. Like, it's turned out really well for a lot of people. Obviously yourself, back in your hometown, doing a lot of things that you love. So yeah, and that's
I think that was a really cool thing. Was like, I came back. There was a job opening at a high school, started last year. Came back, and it was one like we loved our lifestyle up at Casuarina. Like, it was. I mean, we're living 2 minutes from the beach and good weather. Like, it was amazing, but it was just with the kids, it was getting a bit harder. Co was getting to the age where he was 11 at the time, and just starting to ask more and more about family, and just sort of felt like it was the right time to come back. And and to be honest, like, coming back and hanging out with you boys last year with hockey, like, that was another thing that I guess a bit of a takeaway for us was when we were up the coast. It was one where, like, I was played hockey like at the Gold Coast rink and then at the Brisbane rink, and just kind of couldn't find that kind of connection or that community sort of feel.
Yeah, that camaraderie.
And like, I sort of have a little bit of a play around with Aussie rules as well, and like, enjoyed the game, but again, just didn't sort of have that click with anyone, and that kind of, as I said, like, that community feel. So coming back to hockey, where we'd always sort of just felt at home, it was just sort of really good, like, just on a multitude of levels, and not just for me, but for the kids as well. Like, I mean, even the girls are like asking now, like, when can we go back to hockey? And so for me, that's sort of one where I was like, oh, it just sort of just feels just at home with it. So
yeah, I think it was a good timing too. I mean, I know, well, for the North Stars in particular, that side of things had been really underutilized. We never really had an off-season training program of any sorts, or somebody to work with as a team. When you came in, what were some of the things that you wanted to accomplish? I guess initial impressions and how you saw how everything went last year.
Yeah, last year, like, I was. Like, I've tried not to reflect on it too much, but for me, like, first and foremost, like, I just loved it. And coming in as well, like, because, like, and I was talking to a few mates about it as well. So going from, like, say, a professional sport environment to a semi-professional environment where you've got, like, obviously, I mean, for you firstly, but like just with like the family commitments and probably half our team, if not more, has kind of got the family commitments. You sort of see that, and it's good from the sense that, like in the professional environment, you kind of see people, they just take it for granted. Whereas all you guys kind of are there just for a purpose and a common goal. So initially I was probably anxious just around sort of like getting buy-in and not wanting to sort of come in too full on. But then I sort of found, like, I mean, a couple of the guys I'd sort of played East Coast with and sort of had that bit of a relationship with already. So that sort of felt easy. Plus, I mean, just a great bunch of guys and a great organisation all around that made that side easy. So that was sort of the first thing I was unsure of, was probably just getting the trust more so. So that's sort of the way I was trying to approach it, just get people's trust. And then there's sort of, I guess, a couple of sort of approaches you can take to it. Like, one is trying to maximize performance, and I guess that's where the training program comes in. But then the other part's just trying to keep guys on the ice for as much as possible, try to keep people healthy. Like, I mean, obviously there's some instances where like shit just goes wrong, like someone takes a bad hit or whatever it is, like, and there's just unavoidable ones. But for the most part as well, and the way I try to approach it is that most things are somewhat avoidable, or you can't necessarily stop things from happening, but try to reduce the severity. So I guess for me, just trying to sort of bring in that mobility, preparation type component, just so people just aren't like, I mean, the nature of the game, the nature of the schedule, and the fact everyone's got to work around it as well. Like, your bodies are going to get beat up naturally. So starting from a point of sort of just trying not to sort of have that compounding week to week. That was sort of the one thing I wanted to look at. And then I guess just some basic sort of baseline fitness or strength kind of increases. So trying to increase like aerobic capacity and strength. That was sort of like my broad kind of thoughts coming into it anyway. And then I guess just the way it sort of evolved, and obviously with like Johnny and Ray from a coaching staff perspective, kind of making it clear what style of game they wanted to play. And obviously that's sort of based on, I guess, the strength of the boys as well. That was, I guess, the way like I wanted to try to come at it from, is just try to be like, okay, well, what's sort of going to be our style of play, and then try to have the fitness components kind of match up with that. And I guess and then I guess early on, like, we probably had that, maybe that kind of jump on other teams just in regards to just the ability to sort of play out the full 3 periods. So that, I guess, that's
were we like 10-1 to start the year?
Yeah, something like, 10-1. And so I think we kind of started well from that. In hindsight, I think we sort of had that jump and probably didn't capitalize on it. Like, I know there was other factors as well, but for me anyway, I was like, I think maybe just adding in some extra kind of conditioning drills throughout practice, not so much from a fitness perspective, but more just to try to keep the spark going and keep that speed component up. Not that I think we lost it per se, but more just looking at it from a physical standpoint. I think we had that jump, and sort of other teams, once they got their legs back into it, maybe kind of just reduce that gap a little bit. So that was sort of one thing that for me, I was like, that's probably one thing I kind of stuffed up. Not that it may or may not have made a difference, but yeah, for me, I just think that was something that that was probably an area.
It's a trial and error. Trial and error, you know what I mean? Yeah. Again, you go back to this, like you said, it's, you've gone from professional sports, professional athletes to, for all intent and purposes, an amateur game, and you're expecting guys to do what professional athletes are doing,
Yeah.
They're still got to work full time. They still got family commitments. They still got all these other commitments to do. Then they got to think about hockey. Then they got to think about working out,
Yeah.
But your first full year in the league, how was it? You loved it?
Yeah, man, I absolutely loved it. Like, maybe at times more from a social perspective, but it was. But yeah, no, like absolutely, just loved it. Obviously, having the family support and the other wife support for D was helpful. Like it was one like I'd always kind of heard it, especially from you, Joey, just around the I guess like the sacrifices that the wives and partners make. Didn't fully get it, and then last year I was kind of like, okay, like
yeah,
I kind of it's like especially like nights where we'd had like the Tuesday, Thursday practices, and I'm just like, hey babe, like I know the girls are kind of losing their shit here, but like I got to go, and she was just like, yeah, like go, it's all sweet. So, and then I guess sort of having that sort of support around it, that was awesome. But yeah, that was probably the biggest part that I didn't like understand. Like I kind of knew that it was a factor, but hadn't kind of lived it as much.
yeah, it's pretty hectic. And like we're well, the joy of us is we can leave 5 minutes before we have to be there. The unfortunate thing with Bertsky and them, Bertsky's Patty Ritchie, all those boys that Jester, they gotta, they're 3 hours before practice.
Yeah, and that's like 100%, and that's what I think. I was just like, especially from that, and sort of feeding back into sort of Bert's previous question around the approach, like was I guess sort of reframing that workout component, because like last year during the season, like I think I did like 2 workouts myself. Like I've gone from usually doing 3 a week to like last year I got like 2 done, and I'm like, well, obviously like especially like the Central Coast and Sydney boys, like they've got that travel time on top of it, and so yeah, like I totally kind of understand it and appreciated that a lot more throughout the year as well. So
they're a great group of guys that you were able to work with too. They're all very very compelling and very understanding.
Yeah.
Bertsky?
I don't know, Joe. What do you got written down?
Man, I got heaps. Like, the importance. So, Josh, for a lot of people that may not know out there, you have Bert's sat in surgeries and whatnot, so he's got that side of it. But like, you're more. Would your view be more anti-surgery? You're more rehabilitation focused. Like you don't want people to start going under the knives and stuff like that. The reason why I asked, prime example, a lot of people hurt themselves. First thing in their head, I need to have surgery. A huge, big thing past 2 years. I'm sure you guys have heard this guy named Connor McDavid, plays for Edmonton, the league over in Canada. Brutal knee injury, and he prides himself on all the strength and conditioning and didn't do surgery. And he came back. Clearly, he's still one of the top 3 players in the world. How do you see that? Like, what's your view on that, Josh?
Firstly, it's absolutely not my area of expertise. That's the question for the real doctors. But for me, it's one like I think where possible, like if people can avoid surgery, it's a good thing. Not necessarily for everyone's jobs sometimes, but yeah, like it's sort of one. I mean, there's definitely, I think, like to be honest, I don't fully know overseas as much, but in Australia, like I think particularly like our footy coach, we definitely have a tendency just to kind of just go under the knife sort of straight away. Maybe with the view that if it buys you maybe like 2 weeks, like you can kind of get back maybe 2 weeks earlier. I think that's where it tends to be favoured. But yeah, like I mean, for me, it's like if it's not my case by any means, but where possible, if we can avoid surgery, I think it's always a good thing. And yeah, that's just what I've sort of seen over here. It's like sometimes those 50-50 ones, I think in overseas, like the States, just from talking to a few sort of people in the similar area over there, like they seem to be a bit more, I don't know, like if it's a 50-50 one, they seem to just be like, oh, we'll give rehab a crack. Whereas over here, there's definitely more a tendency of, oh, it's 50-50. We can get you back 2 weeks early. Let's just sort of chop you. So.
Yeah, and I think it also would have to definitely depend, like, you're talking Bert Malloy, you're talking Connor McDavid. One of them is a top athlete, and the other is Connor McDavid. You know what I mean? And Connor McDavid wait a minute. No. 2, carry the 4, minus the 3. Anyway, so yeah, then you got, but Connor McDavid has access to every possible known device or whatnot to get himself better. Jumping from that, Josh, like I said, being your first year in the league, bringing your first year back with the team and stuff, what's some of the highs? What's some of the lows? Tell us. Everybody knows. Oh, there's a car accident. There. Tell us all about some funny story. Perhaps, I don't know, introducing yourself. Introducing yourself in very awkward and unusual ways. What do they call it?
Yeah.
What do they call it in Japan? Kapow?
Yeah, I was going to say you only said that to me about 15 times. I'm glad you kind of led that one because I was like, there was about 5 funny stories, but probably one's only one's appropriate. So I guess at least I get to tell my side of the story.
No. We got heaps of time. Actually,
I think we're yet to hear the other side of the story.
No, not at all. It's your side of the story, Josh. Tell us.
My side of the story. So on the greeting, my side of the story. So firstly, what was it? The sponsors night? That's what it's called, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sponsors night. Sponsors night.
Meet the players.
Yeah,
the players.
So let's meet the players. Meet the sponsors, Josh.
Meet the players and the sponsors night. So I was like, initially I was just like, I think that's right. I drove you and Josie and Dee. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll just take it mellow tonight. Like I'll drive. In hindsight, I remember just being like, it'll just be a mellow night. Like I'll just kind of hide in the background, players and sponsors. No one wants to see me. So I drove, and I remember like we'd picked you up driving in my prestige car, bottom bugging out.
Was it a Porsche?
Yeah, once upon a time. Should have seen when I turned up to the nights with it this week. Everyone was just like, they're almost going to turn me away at security. But yeah, so I remember we rocked up and drove past the front of the restaurant, and I remember looking and I was like, oh yeah, there's Hamo. It was sort of like Hamo's frame obviously stands out. And he was wearing, I've forgotten over time, but it was the same shirt, so it doesn't matter. But it was either like a dark blue.
That calls Hansu.
It was either dark blue or purple. I remember we sort of drove past, pulled up, came around inside. I think you were just finishing your water in the back. And then we sort of slowly came out. Dee and Josie went in, and then we were just sort of wandering in. And it's not my usual greeting. I still don't know why I did it, but we walked in the front door and
wait, that's not your usual greeting, eh?
No, it's not like it's not one where I'm just like, oh, there's someone I know. This is how I'm going to greet them. It just, I don't know. There was some sort of inspiration. I don't know. Maybe you were talking about something on the way in, and I walked in and I was like, oh yeah, there's Hamo talking to Dana, and Dana kind of like looked at me and.
You saw like a glaze go over your eyes, like what is John?
No, this was before. This is before the Kung Powing. I just remember like I kind of like locked eyes with Dana, and he kind of just like gave me a little nod and then kept talking. And I mean that kind of, I remember initially thinking like, oh, that's weird. Like Dana's usually just chirping me about something, and so I probably should have taken that as like an initial red flag. And then I walked up thinking that it was Hamo's back to us, just a couple meters inside the front door, and took my thumb and just tried to take his temperature.
Wait, I don't get it. Wait, what do you mean?
Like when sort of same as when you, I don't know, take your dog and they need they're a bit crook and they need to get their temperature taken.
Not familiar with that. Please explain.
No?
More in depth. What did you do?
Just took my thumb and kind of rammed it in his butt cheek adjacent area.
I believe it's called the anus.
Yeah. The rectum. And I just kind of went just a whammy straight up. And I just remember like looking at Dane, like I was like kind of laughing. I was like, oh, this is going to be a little bit funny. And Dane just sort of like his eyes just went real wide. And I was sort of like got this big like Cheshire Cat smile, and just sort of like coming around the corner, just being like, I got you, Hamo. And this guy's just like done the old slow turn, like where the shoulder kind of like rolls back and then the head slowly follows.
You had your thumb up his ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And fair enough. But and then I remember he's just like slowly turned, and it was almost like this deja vu kind of feeling where like you're sort of expecting to see someone's face, and then the face doesn't look like how you remember, and it just takes like that half a second to process. Where at first I'm like, what's happened to Hamo's face? And then they clued that wasn't Hamo.
Somebody switched his face with somebody else's face. That's what
maybe. Yeah, just like an inception or something. And he looked at me, and all of a sudden I've gone from having this massive smile, thinking I was hilarious, to
him having this
probably. Sorry?
To him having the smile. No?
Maybe smiling eyes, maybe. No, there was no smile. He was just looking shocked. And, yeah, I was just sort of halfway through pissing myself laughing, and I'm like, oh, you're not Hamo.
So then what?
So then it was, I just looked, I was like, oh, you're not Hamo. And he's like, no, I'm not Hamo. And then I looked to my right, and Hamo's standing there just like about to lose it. And Dane's just like got his head in his wine, just going, what the fuck? Like just embarrassed. And then I can't remember how it ended. I think I just apologized, moved on. And
how do you apologize? How do you like, hey man, sorry for
yeah, I just said,
put my thumb in your
sorry mate, nice firm ass, but I wasn't intended for you.
Yeah.
I actually can't remember. And then I remember I just remember like I was walking like a puppy dog with like a tail between its legs, and I walked straight up to you. You'd gone to the bar. I came up to you, and you've turned around to give me a beer, and you're like, what's up? And I'm like, just shoved my thumb up that dude's ass over there. And you're just like, I remember you looked and you were like, Dane. I was like, no, the other dude. And you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah, that guy was one of the big players, big sponsors of the team.
Yeah, that got
he had just signed a check for Gary.
Yeah. Literally handed the check over. Boom. Next minute. Knuckle.
Well, at least I got COVID to blame if he didn't re-sign this year.
Yeah, he didn't actually.
Too soon, Josh.
Too soon, okay, so. But yeah, that was it. And I think it took all of about 2 minutes for it to get around like
wildfire.
At least all the team. And then I remember it kind of got brought up multiple times. So
no random phone calls through the middle of the night.
Yeah, I mean, people don't forget. Yeah.
Were people
no free wheat bix.
Yeah. I didn't get that one.
Were people?
There was no free wheat bix the next morning.
Yeah, free wheat bix on the front porch next day.
Yeah, with a thank you note.
Were you invited to many parties after that, or what?
I was invited. I got invited to the. I got invited to. Yeah. I was just thinking. I was like, I didn't actually hear about any more parties. I don't think there were more. No, I think that I got invited to the end of year presentation. Actually, no, we won't. No, let's scrap that one. Yeah. That one was. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I didn't get invited to anymore.
Jeez, oh man, Josh, you've been a guest speaker, a keynote speaker at multiple conferences, internationally. That's huge. It's huge. Like, is that something that you would like to pursue more? Like, do you kind of look into doing that more?
Yeah, it was kind of something that. Like I knew it was kind of a thing. Like, I mean, I'd been to, because we've got probably there's sort of like three like big strength and conditioning conferences worldwide. There's one here, one in the UK, one in the US, and obviously we always had presenters come out, and I was always like, oh, that'd be a cool thing to do. And then I got to present at our one in Australia, and then from that got asked to go present at the one in Japan. And then one in the US at the start of this year, and it's sort of something like, I don't think anyone really likes public speaking per se, but for me it was just a cool way just to kind of build the network and see other places in the world. So
build Dr. Josh.
What was that, so much?
I said, and build your own reputation, build your name. Dr. Josh, the thumb specialist.
Yeah.
Thumbs up above the
Yeah,
rest.
no, whenever I walk into opening nights at conferences, I just keep my hands in my pockets these days. But yeah, no, like it's something really cool to, and just sort of getting, I mean, a lot of times, I'm sure it's the same across every profession, but especially, like I know it's definitely true in sort of what I do is, there's always sort of like different parts of the world sort of have different strengths. So like, for example, the sports science, like the science application side, is probably most highly regarded in Australia compared to other parts of the world.
Yeah.
But then obviously say in like the US, the actual coaching side is probably like the focal point there. So it's just cool to pick up just sort of different elements and just meet a variety of people. Like from the one in Japan, like I met some cool people, but they all spoke Japanese, no English. So I wasn't really able to build much of a network there. Yeah, go figure, hey? And I think my presentation was good. It was all translated. So if it was shit, I was just blaming the translator. But then like the one in the US was really cool. Like I got to meet some just like a really wide variety of people, and particularly like kind of got to reach out and meet a bunch of people involved in hockey over there. So that's been really cool just to share kind of ideas and knowledge and just sort of get different perspectives. So that's that side of it's something that I definitely want to continue. And yeah, just to sort of always, I guess, just sort of get different perspectives and pick up different things. And yeah, so that's something that I definitely want to try to continue where possible.
Awesome. Bertsy, what do you got?
Man, I don't have too much. It's interesting to hear you talk about all this. I mean, we've never really taken a dive into your professional career. Any new or upcoming technologies or theories or anything that you want to implement into our team, I guess?
Yeah, definitely like a couple of things. It's kind of that one, I guess, sort of like what we were talking about with one of your earlier questions, Bertsky, where it's like understanding that it's like what amateur, semi-pro, whatever we want to class it. So like not overcooking it, but not doing it a disservice either. So like, because that's one thing I try not to balance out, is not try to just come in just over the top and guys are just like, man, I got to work. Like I don't want to have to think about this shit. But the one area, and from the testing that everyone minus our captain got to do at the start of the year. But from that, like the main thing was there was this really cool technology came out a couple of years back related to looking at like hip strength. So like groin, hip strength, like adductor, abductor. And just from the data that I was able to collect on the guys at the start of the season, actually saw some really cool relationships just in regards to more hip strength at different positions. So hip abductor strength, so essentially the strength in the hip where your leg's straight and you're pushing out. So essentially like your skating stride. Just essentially where with your leg out at like an extended angle, so foot away from the body, your strength in that position in combination with essentially your jumping performance, so doing a vertical jump or counter movement jump, the more highly performing you are in the counter movement jump and also that hip strength was pretty well like almost a sort of closer relationship as you can get to predicting like 0 to 10 meter skating speed, which was actually really cool because like a lot of the research sort of from Europe and the US had more looked just at more like the biomechanic like aspects of it. So like what sort of separates faster and slower skaters from like a hip range perspective, whereas that data we were kind of able to look at the strength components. And to be honest, that's some stuff that I've spoken about with a couple of people I've met sort of like NHL. I met a guy from an AHL team when I was over in the States, and also just through a friend in Sydney actually got to get hooked up with a guy that works in Switzerland in the NLA, I think it is.
The lacrosse.
Sorry?
Lacrosse.
Mm-hmm.
No, like over in Switzerland, the top hockey league there, the NLA. Yeah, which is bigger than I thought. And like I was able to kind of just discuss it with them, and they're all kind of like pretty pumped on it. So that's something that with those guys, I'm actually going to kind of look at a bit more. And there's also a guy that I've been talking to that I met over there from Boston Uni, I think. So that's something we'll kind of want to look at a bit more and just sort of share ideas around. I guess they've kind of got the broader scope of athletes. We've kind of got the technology. So if we can match it up that way, that's something that I'm kind of intrigued to do. So that's something that I want to look at more, because as well, like I guess the other way I try to approach it is not just increasing strength or power or muscle mass just for the sake of it, but rather being like, well, what's the difference between winning or losing? Well, part of that's obviously going to be like winning puck battles, being able to sort of make the most of opportunities. And I mean, there's obviously other factors that come into it, but for me, it's like, well, acceleration, sprint skating speed's a big one for that. So what are the physical qualities we can improve to sort of touch up those areas? And I think as well, I guess due to the nature of it out here, just due to the fact that of our limited ice time, particularly say for like some of the kids coming through like the 18s, 20s and that, because we got that limited ice time, they're not getting that actual same amount of, I guess, actual sort of specific opportunity to develop those capacities. Well, it's that one where I'm like, well, if we can figure out what are the physical capacities related to it, maybe we can just sort of make them stronger or more flexible, whatever it is, in those capacities, so that then we can maybe just make up for the fact that they're not getting the same amount of time on ice. So that's sort of the approach I want to take with that. The other thing that would be cool to do, like it's not sort of realistic from the same scope of it, but the work I've been doing with the Knights lately is more just looking at the like the sports science side. So a lot of the GPS. I know GPS is something that they're actually going to allow as part of the CBA in the NHL from next season, but previously it hasn't been. So they don't actually have any of that data, but it's something in all the footy codes over here is just it's just been something that's been going on for like probably 15 years, and it's pretty well refined. But particularly when it comes to like a training perspective. So for example, like today, like I was into the Knights, and my sort of main role is to be running the GPS units. Like we're running them live, so you can see like as it's happening how much distance a certain player's covered, what their meters per minute is, which is like a measure of intensity. So on average, how many meters are they covering per minute? And we sort of got like know what a typical range is for a game, and then you can kind of see if they're above or below that. And then you're kind of talking to the coach at the same time just to monitor certain guys. So if someone's a bit fatigued, or you want them peaking for the game, you can kind of pull them back. If you obviously want a session that's a bit more upbeat, if you're looking at it and you're like, oh, well, we were aiming for 112 meters a minute, we're only at 90, you can kind of say like, look, like fucking pick it up. And that's something that's been done a lot there. As I said, that's obviously not something that's going to be applicable per se at a like an AI level. But I think there's still maybe some metrics around that, just from that planning perspective. That's probably something that I think would be better, like probably something we could refine a bit better. Particularly like, I mean, I know like if you cop like the Adelaide Perth trip, like I know it's at that balance again where it's like, well, I mean, for example, for you guys, it's like you've made the effort to come up from the Central Coast. You don't want to come and just have like a half-hour session. But if it's better for your body overall, then there's probably some sort of method to the madness around that. So
exactly.
Joe, last thoughts?
I got nothing, man. I just think that what you're doing is awesome, Josh. And it's, sports in Australia has come a long way, especially hockey. And to have someone like yourself on board with the North Stars and just incorporate even the AIHL, hopefully it motivates more teams. And Melbourne Mustangs had Kira, Canberra had a couple of guys, trainers and stuff like that. So I think it's huge, and I think that everybody appreciates what you do. And yeah, just keep fighting the good fight. Keep doing what you're doing, and like I said, it's really good that you've chosen a passion, and got back to your roots and got back to hockey and devoting as much education and much time into volunteering sport.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, as you said, like there's so many good people working across all the other teams, and one of the Aussie dudes that I actually met when I was over in the States, he's like working for one of the MLB, like Major League Baseball teams over there, and he'd previously like done a bit of work for the ice and that, like I didn't even know, and so it's pretty cool just to see just there's a lot of people getting involved, and yeah, hopefully it's one where hopefully the league keeps growing, and we can just all kind of push it further and push it to where we want it to be.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, utilize new technologies, GPS tracking. The technology is there. We just got to find a way to utilize it to scale.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like the technology's there. Like previously, the GPS it just hasn't worked indoors. And then a couple of years back, one of the companies sort of started developing an indoor version. Now a couple are do, and it's at that stage now where it's new and it's super expensive, like $200K. But it's one where over time, it's definitely going to kind of come down in price, and I guess sort of linking in, like I know Canberra did it last year, like they've kind of linked in with Uni of Canberra. I'm hoping that as part of my role at Uni Newcastle, we can sort of get something else going where maybe can sort of get more access to that type of technology and equipment. So
awesome. Bertie?
That's it, man. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate everything you do. You helped me out along the way, and I look forward to working with you once we get back on the ice here.
Yeah, looking forward to it for sure, mate.
Sick, Josh. Awesome. Thanks for coming on the pod, man. Really appreciate it. We'll definitely be catching up soon.
You and me, or?
Yeah. Little couple Boilermakers. I'll hit you up. I'll hit you up this weekend. See what you're doing. Tristan called. I saw Tristan today in Woolley, so he's keen to have a couple.
Oh, I'm busy then.
All right, buddy. Thank you, Jen.
I was just I don't know if Bert have you heard the story about Joey's last year playing East Coast when he buckled his nose?
Which time?
That's sort of what I'm referring to, the multiple times. When I was chatting today, and I was like, I don't know if Joey's going to like stitch me up or what. And she was like, oh, you got some good stories on him. I'm like, yeah, but not all of them are appropriate. And I was like, one of them that stands out was when you copped the deflection. And
no, it wasn't. The first one was a headbutt.
Was it?
Yeah, the first one was someone's helmet, and then the second one was I tried to tie up Gibbo to fight Jason Gibson, and I was coming out of the corner. I was like, "Come on, Gibbo, let's go!" And then here, look out! And Paul Bond shot a clap bomb with about 2 seconds into the zone and cracked me right in the face, linking me.
I mean, obviously, like your nose was super fucked after that, which was unfortunate. But the part that I thought was funny was you'd been going visor, you copped that first one, the headbutt, and then you put a cage on for the Sunday, and then the next Saturday you were like, nah, fuck it, like I'm not wearing a cage. Put the visor back on, and like first 5 minutes, cop that deflection.
Yeah, no, it was straight shot. Paul Bond went to just do a dump in on net with her, like I said, there was a couple seconds to go, and just smoked me square in the face with the puck, and my nose just exploded. I remember I went because I think it was that one or the first one where I went into the dressing room and I just grabbed some Zamboni ice and I set it myself, and I just popped it back in. I set it myself, and the second one with the puck, I went into the pro shop and put a cage on, and then I tried to go back out, and Peasy was standing there. Matt Pease was standing right there, and he's like, "Man, you're don't go back out. You're leaking." And so then I didn't go to the hospital. I ended up going to actually I went back to a buddy's
bottle shop.
Yeah, well, I did. I went. I went with Joe, so went over to my buddy Marcus's, and I put 2 tampons in my nose. I was like, oh yeah, like everybody, you get a bloody nose, you put a tampon in there. But I'm
pretty sure I still got that photo somewhere as well.
Oh yeah, I got them. They were on my I had them on my phone. They're on my computer, and the problem is they filled up. They filled up, and then I had to pull them out, and they were dried up, and it just went and leaked out again. So, no, that was a great time, Josh. I forgot about that one too. Appreciate it.
And then the next year when you were just like, my head's taking too much of a beating, I better coach.
Yeah.
I still remember, like, and this was probably one of my funniest stories. I don't know why I love you so much, but like, I still remember you were coaching us, and you were like, fucking gnarly. You're just talking about like just crushing blokes, this and that. And then one time I was like, this was back when I respected you. No, I still respect it. And I remember I was just like, we were getting crushed in this game, like by Raptors. We were down like 6-1 after like a period and a half, and you're just like, we're soft, we're this, they're that, calling everyone out. And I was like, I want to make Joey proud. And I like fought a dude. I mean, I remember, and then like I think it was the second time he'd skated. I remember you just like dressed me down in front of the team at the end of the game, like just absolutely railroaded me, called me a piece of shit, like told me that unless I picked up my attitude, not to turn up to practice the next week. And I remember like sitting there, like, and I was just like, man, Joe's pretty serious, but you remember stud.
That's Josh after his fight.
There's one good hit in it. And I just remember you just like hammering me, calling me just useless, this, that. And I was just like, I remember like every game. I remember like the last 2 games you played. I'm pretty sure you tried to fight Chalker like 5 times. And I mean, if anyone's seen you play in-house these days as well, oh my God.
Yeah.
Trying to fight 16-year-olds.
What a bully.
I was an asshole. My first year coaching was an absolute piece of shit. Won the championship, but I was an absolute piece of shit. I'd get stories from like imports and stuff like that about like random coaches that they had and stuff like that. And one of them was that they one coach never let them use the gate. So like literally nobody's using the gate, and they went over. And then another one was nobody was allowed to. The only people that were allowed to sit down is the guys who immediately came off the ice. Everybody else had to stand up. So. Yeah.
Yeah, you were pretty tough that year.
That was a piece of shit.
Now, every time you call for change, you just boot me up the arse.
Wow. And turn around. So.
Maybe that's where I got.
That's enough of that. That's enough of reminiscing there. We're going to cut all this out anyway. So.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, just wanted to.
All right, well, I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for nothing, Josh. There goes my coaching certificate. But all right, thanks heaps, Josh. Thanks for coming out, buddy. Bernsky, we'll catch up.
See you, boys.
See you soon, Bert.
Yeah, I hope so too. I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
See you, mate.